Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Amy Bateman. I'm in the K12 Account Executive with Data Networks. I've been working in the area for over 20 years and excited to have everyone join us today. Data Networks is a make contractor, and our core competencies include client computing, data center and cloud services, infrastructure, security, and managed services. I don't want to spend too much time today, so I'd like to turn it over to Mike Durando with Lightspeed Systems. Excited that he's here today to join us. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, and thank you, Data Networks and Meek Organization for having us today. I guess we're fortunate that quite a few of you attending today are familiar with Lightspeed because you're utilizing our either content filtering or classroom management or a combination of both. But in a little bit, you'll hear from Jena Draper, who's one of the co-founders of CatchOn Analytics. But just before we jump into analytics and some of the problems that solution can solve for districts, a little background on Lightspeed Systems, and in case you're not familiar, and background on myself, Mike Durando, VP of Sales at Lightspeed. I've been with the company 13 years now. I'm based in Austin, where we're headquartered, and been fortunate to be a part of an organization that's been serving school districts 100% of the time for over 20 years. And now a very global company, in case you weren't aware. Currently, and actually I should have updated these stats a bit before yesterday, up to about 6,500 school districts in the US. It's now close to 23 million students behind the software, and actually 42 countries as of yesterday. So we've continued to grow and innovate. We'll just mention briefly the platform offering that we have, and then jump into the analytics. But I think as we, you hear from Jena today, we hear these buzzwords in all our lives, right? Machine learning, AI, large data sets. And I think we've been really fortunate to experience crazy growth every year for the last 20 years to be able to utilize this data set. And as we talk about some of the things that happened with our, this time last year, acquisition of CatchOn, and being able to leverage the synergies between the companies and that large data set. It'll make more sense when Jena is describing how we categorize applications and how you're able to measure the ROI on those things. And so we're just, again, leveraging that 23 million students and counting in order to provide better information, better insights to school districts. So next slide, please, Jena. And again, I think we're fortunate. There's quite a few, if not the majority of customers on this are Lightspeed customers. So you're well aware we've got a great presence in Maryland and all across the US. But for those of you, there's some very large districts on this webinar today, and there's some very small. I think the thing to take away from this is, and we'll talk a little bit about the infrastructure, because it's 100% cloud-based, and we've partnered with AWS. We've reached what they call an EdTech competency, which is a bit of a silly name, but is what it is. But what that means is the way that Lightspeed's architected the software from a security and scalability standpoint. There's no other vendor in our space that has reached that. And so again, we'll talk a little bit about data privacy and applications and how we can help you monitor applications in the analytics powered by CatchOn. But just know, whether you're a very small elementary school up to some of the largest school districts in the US, Lightspeed's now used by 7 out of the top 10 districts. So we can scale with your organization as you continue to grow and continue to get devices and continue to add third-party applications. And what makes up that platform, if we go to the next slide, Jen, please, is, again, fortunate many of you are familiar with some of these products today. Lightspeed Systems started as a content filtering company because we all know federal mandated to maintain SIPA compliance, right? And so that's how we got into this game. And over the years, as basically you as school districts have driven our roadmap, we've introduced these other products that are fully integrated to one another and complementary. And so whether it's Lightspeed Alert, which is powering safeguarding for school districts, think your cyberbullying, your explicit content, your violence, that's a relatively new product that, because our customer base said, I need this in a single pane of glass, leverage the technology that Lightspeeds have, the patented smart agent, to gather this information and give us the visibility that we've been missing from other solutions. Similar story with classroom management, same sort of idea, right? Why would I have a separate classroom management system separate from my filter? Those things don't necessarily get along. So whether it's Lightspeed filtering, the safeguarding product alert, classroom management, or even mobile device management, really this interoperability that Lightspeed can bring as a platform is why we are in so many of the largest and so many school districts in the US and around the world. And then a little background on the catch-on piece. I make this joke, it sometimes hits, but I'll try it again today. Lightspeed, noticed, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago, we did have a tremendous amount of data. And school districts, whether it was the curriculum, CFOs, they were wondering, what's the engagement like with my applications? What's the adoption, right? And so Lightspeed built an analytics product. And I think many have kind of read the news about all the mergers and acquisitions happening in the K12 space, but just in tech in general. And it's one of those, if you can't beat them, buy them. And so we were fortunate, a lot of companies buy a company just for tech and they get rid of the people. With the team that Jena had built at CatchOn was the perfect marriage for Lightspeed, because not only did we get the best people that have been living and breathing analytics and came from school districts like yourself and understand the needs and kind of this blind spot that districts have, but we also got superior technology that's now fully integrated in this Lightspeed platform. So just some background on kind of Lightspeed and how we got here, and as well as this acquisition. Before I turn it over to Jena to dive really deep into why you came here today, learn about some of the visibility and security practices that the Lightspeed Analytics powered by CatchOn can bring to you.
Hi, everybody. I am Jena Draper. I am the founder of CatchOn. I started CatchOn back in 2016. If you have been at any conference where I have presented or keynoted, you've probably heard my spiel. I'm very proud of my story. It's just like Mike said, Lightspeed's been very in touch with districts' needs and has adapted their business to meet the needs of our partner districts. That's the same reason CatchOn started. It's the same reason that keeps us fueled every day. I started talking to districts across the country back in 2016, and I wanted to help them be able to maximize technology to its fullest potential in the classroom. And I recognized that districts did not have a single pane of glass for this data, for just identifying what was being used, especially as it related to the tools they were buying. This was a kind of a new concept back then. It was, wow, what if I could show you this data? What if it could be in one spot? You wouldn't have to ask vendors for this data. And they said, if you could build that, you would be solving one of the biggest problems in K-12 education. And I said, okay, that sounds fun. I'll go for it. Challenge accepted. And fast forward 6.5 years later, I used to say this is 4 years. Now we're like almost 7 years in. But we trailblazed this in the space with K12 Analytics, with EdTech usage data, giving districts this visibility that they've never had before. Something we're really proud of. We started off by providing districts usage and visibility into return on investment, just to help them really be able to get a grasp on what they were buying. And this has morphed and transformed, as it should. And it's an incredible experience that we've transformed into helping districts with student data privacy, with impact. So I'd love to go through all of that with you guys in the demo. But as you know, COVID has really accelerated the need for data analytics. If you haven't seen our data report, we'd be happy to share it with you after this. There's also going to be a QR code that you can download it yourself. But we did this data report in the last couple months, and we aggregated all of our data historically from our system just to see what happened over the course of the last 2 years. What happened during COVID and where are we at post-mortem, to get that retrospective perspective that to help districts make better decisions, because now you're in this spot where free has been the thing, for better or for worse, as we will learn in the platform for student data privacy. But teachers have had all these free tools, and districts were buying things with all of these extra funds that are no longer going to be available, unfortunately. How do you start to really make informed decisions about what has worked, what hasn't, and really be efficient with your resources and how you support those resources? So we'll talk through this a little bit more, but our EdTech report found some really interesting facts that I'll go through whenever I demo the product, but really focus on student data privacy. Now that there is such a proliferation of these EdTech apps, how do we start to make sense of these? Which ones are good? Which ones are moving the needle? Which ones are actually making an impact? Teachers are finding all these great tools. Which ones are worth keeping around? How about those tools that are collecting student PII that maybe we don't want being used, that don't meet our state's student data privacy laws? So we'll go through all of that, but could you believe that almost 91% of all applications have changed their privacy policy at least 3 times in the past year? How on earth do you even keep up with that? I'll show you how we do it. Let me go ahead and share my screen to the demo, which is why you all came here anyways. Okay, guys, I am more than happy to stop at any point. So please feel free as I kind of pause on a screen. If you have any questions, we can go there. But I'm going to take you first to the dashboard. This is all the stuff we call what you know. Again, how CatchOn started and in Lightspeed Analytics now, that we wanted to help school districts really be able to have that cost management piece, to have a single view now that empowers administrators to understand and act on quickly cost management, app approvals, student data privacy compliance. So we wanted you to be able to have all of this data on the tools that you purchase. What we've seen in the last few months since school has started is that many of our districts with our customizable widgets, which is something that's very unique to our tool, we provide you a completely customized experience, have the data exactly how you want it right here on your dashboard. Think of it kind of like Pinterest pinning. I know many of you probably do not Pinterest. I'm a mom, so I Pinterest. But think of it as pinning for Pinterest, and you can pin all of these reports the exact way you want to see them, especially those that you might need on a more frequent basis for school board meetings or staff meetings. But we've seen a lot of our districts be creating widgets for CARES Act purchases because they really want to be able to get a handle on what was purchased with those COVID dollars that are no longer going to be there. How do you start to make informed decisions, judicial decisions? Because you can't just take away candy from a baby. These teachers have had these tools for a long time now. They like these tools. They are accustomed to these tools. So districts have shared with us that they are looking for data to justify their decisions. How do you justify decisions if you don't have data? So now if you can see this, of course, this is all demo data. So please don't think this is any real district, but maybe these are the 3 tools that you're specifically tracking. Maybe these are the tools that have the largest chunk of your COVID dollars, for the sake of example. You see Lumen Learning not being used, we'll pick on them a little bit. What would you do with this information? Data is important to tell a story. And that's how I've always shared about CatchOn since its early days, is that this tells a story. It is a very important piece, but it's not the whole piece of it. The next piece from data is asking questions, is to inform better questions so that you can really get a handle on what's the story at your district. Every district has a story. Why isn't Lumen Learning being used? Is it because there's another tool being used that is free or schools bought with their discretionary funds? Do teachers find it difficult? Is it not a good UI? Is it just not loading on your devices? What's going on? But having that information, now you can ask those questions. And another thing that we're really starting to see districts gravitate towards this year, a big trend across our platform and our suites, have been districts wanting to know out of school use. So imagine if you saw this chart. Of course, September, maybe, we're just coming back online, school's starting. We're starting to get in a groove in October, November. But then here we are in December. I know we're a few days into December, but we're in December. How did we drop off by almost 200 students at home using their tools? Are they not turning in their homework? What's going on there? Is there an outage that we're not aware of? What's happening? How can we support these students to have the tools and the resources they need so that learning and digital learning is equitable?
Jena, real quick before I wanted to bring this up because it came up on a customer call recently. And I think kind of back to, the introductory statement of Lightspeed, most of those products we were talking about were so heavy IT focused, right? And so we've also seen this utilized, and I think Jena kind of mentioned this, to where, even from a hardware perspective, looking at the engagement across your Windows devices versus your Chrome versus your iOS, if you're working with a company like Data Networks, before you go out for a device bid, I think historically you haven't really had the data to look at how's the engagement on the hardware specific stuff. So even things like that are more IT centric can be really beneficial to you to look at the engagement across different device types. And the other thing I've heard recently too, more for the curriculum instructional folks, And I think this will make more sense too as Jen dives in here. But I've heard so many districts over the years, they bring everyone in for professional development on one application, right? And everything that Jen is talking about so far and will continue to gives you the ability to say, okay, if we're focused on a couple of those paid applications, looking at the return on investment, well, it doesn't necessarily mean I want to go cancel those applications if it's underutilized, but the power of this software drilling down from district-wide, even statewide, potentially down an individual classroom shows, okay, maybe it's just a handful of teachers with this application that are struggling to get it off the ground. So focus your PD on that versus bringing everyone in where half the audience might be like, why am I here, right? I already use this software effectively in my classroom. So a couple of things to think about if you're on this call and you're more in the IT house, how you can look at device utilization, and we'll talk more about the privacy piece, but also from the curriculum side, just trying to drive the professional development investment at the right applications that need it the most.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike. And you did bring me to something I would like to share. So I went ahead and looked at a shared widget and a shared dashboard with me. So you can share dashboards, which has been a really, really nice feature for our districts to be able to have that seamless communication between technology and curriculum, because often those are siloed. So we're really helping to bridge that gap through the data. But let's just look at the application usage by sections. Again, a little more curricular focused, but if you're trying to justify those decisions, imagine if you could be able to compare a really high performing class with a not as high performing class. What districts have been using this tool for, more so on the digital, digital learning and curricular sides of things, but being able to identify what the high performing students and classes are doing versus those who aren't, and factoring that impact into their decisions as well. So what if you knew that your highest performing class was using a tool that no one else is using, you didn't purchase? Would that factor into your decision of which ones to renew and which ones to invest in? We found that our districts have said, yes, absolutely, because they're looking to replicate those patterns of success. And those who aren't interested in that didn't know that that data even existed. So we're really excited about that. That's actually a feature we've released in the last couple of months, is really being able to drill down into that. So thanks so much, Mike, for calling me out on that one. Back to the licensed applications, those things, those things that are paid, or even those things that you're supporting. Maybe they're a free app, but you are spending money on professional development and you are putting district resources to supporting this and training on this particular tool. How is it being used? And being able to have that data compared not only across your district, but utilizing global data in the CatchOn and Lightspeed system to see on average, am I over or under licensed for this tool? We want to make it easy for you to be able to understand this information and also to be able to act on it, because what good is information if you can't act on it? So let's drill in a little bit to this information here. So it says 22% not used, over licensed. What does that even mean? Let's look at how many campuses aren't using this tool. Oh, wow, we have 3 campuses who are just not using this tool. Why is that? Again, asking those questions, having the data to be able to drill into where do we need to help support? Maybe those classrooms and those schools don't have access. Maybe they don't like this tool. They found something else that works better for them. How much time are they spending on these tools? Again, something very unique to our tool. We know that vendors always provide districts these averages. You should use this tool for X minutes to see Y results. Well, we can't show you that Y results, but we can help you measure against that goal. So let's go ahead and look and see, why is Carter Intermediate School not using this tool? We've released users reporting since COVID. This was a COVID ask, and districts wanted to know very specifically, for the sake of learning loss, how many kids were or were not online. Imagine if Carter Intermediate School was your new virtual learning school that you spun up post-COVID, post-mortem COVID, and you had 511 people who weren't signing up online, weren't showing up, weren't having any engagements, weren't logging into their devices. What would you do with that information? Many schools that we've talked to and work with have now these hybrid learning environments, and they're specifically trying to make sure that, obviously, because it's online, if the kids are not logging in, that does correlate to their performance and to their attendance, because if they're not online, then they're technically not attending that virtual class. Why are they not online? What's happening here? Being able to drill into the user profile and seeing how long this student has been offline for. Where do they particularly go? Again, this is not super IT focused, but having this information, the goal is to bridge the gap between technology and curriculum so that everybody has a single pane of glass to make these decisions and to work together to make decisions that benefit teachers and students. I'm going to pop back to licensed applications. Does anybody have any questions before I move any further on that? Mike, do you have any questions?
No, I think it's good. I saw one come through, and this is kind of a common one. I think we would have addressed it now or later, so let's just do it now. But
Sure.
I think the question is around, if I have, I think Clever was thrown out at one of the stats we have, right, as one of those heavily used ecosystems. A lot of companies now, much like AI and machine learning, the buzzword alert, have a version or flavor of analytics. I think maybe, Jena, let's talk a little bit about, I think the Lightspeed tech powered with the CatchOn stuff, how we see everything even outside of that ecosystem. I think that would help kind of people frame it a little more of why it's so different.
Absolutely. So obviously CatchOn was started back in 2016. We were the first company to do this. We started with Chrome, we moved to all of the devices. That's a very important differentiator for CatchOn for Lightspeed, because the other platforms that are out there are capturing data in haphazard ways. And I'll explain on that. So what that means is they have come into this space. Of course, this is something that districts need. We found that especially COVID accelerated this need for data. Anyone who has data is now saying they have some form or fashion of usage data. But how they're capturing that is the difference between you being able to make informed decisions longitudinally over time and having data as part of your strategic planning versus it just being a one-off check the box type of situation. So these other products are capturing data for only Chrome browser. They're looking at only single sign-on apps. They're looking at only browser data, not all the way down to the device. They're not capturing data in school and out of school. So every single provider, I've done a lot of research on our competitors, unfortunately, in my spare time. And what that means is that all of our other options that are on the market have one version or another of how they're collecting this data. So it might be X and Y or only Y and Z. We span the gamut. We capture data on Windows, Mac, Chrome, iOS. We capture all the way down to the device level. We have network level data. This is a huge differentiator for Lightspeed as a company. We have invested heavily into our device level agents. They are the absolute best on the market. And that's important when you're making these critical decisions and you might be aligning this data to other sets of data. You need a strong analytics foundation, one that is comprehensive, complete, and accurate. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that was perfect. And it's kind of a good segue into this next question that just popped up. Which is, how's the data getting into CatchOn, student class level? How are we able to drill down into the specific applications? And maybe we can talk a little bit about the rostering and how that easy setup just allows these reports to populate.
Do you want to talk more about the Lightspeed rostering setup?
Yeah. So kind of this is, again, fortunately, because we've been working with school districts for so long, we have a proprietary tool called SmartSync. And so we're able to import, again, I'm saying this for the benefit of the districts that are current Lightspeed partners. You've probably utilized Active Directory or Azure, or for many of you, it could be a combination of AD, Azure, Google OU's Student Information System. And because of this platform, that hierarchy structure that is a district, that tends to live in multiple places, right? And so one of the things we do with kind of the implementation and onboarding that's included is, okay, which Lightspeed products are you looking at today? What's the, kind of the single source of truth to get that rostering information in? And so typically, you're looking at the student information system or some one roster support to import that district hierarchy structure. So district wide, down to the high school, down to the classes within it. And so that we're doing that on the back end to import that hierarchy structure. And then the kind of the patented agent is what's pulling in that traffic, because because of some of the SSL decryption we're doing, we're able to see, you know, when you saw Jena showing the engagement versus adoption type reports, seeing how much time was actually spent on those apps, because this is leveraging, you know, the power of the Lightspeed filtering technology coupled with the CatchOn piece to really show you that. But importing all those groups and users through a variety of sync sources is how we automate that. So you're not manually having to create groups and users all the time. And that's why, you know, one of the big differentiators, Jena mentioned a few too, but a lot of systems are just showing you district level data and not allowing you to drill down and look at that individual student and look at the engagement. And you start to make correlations of, if they're not using the applications, and Jena used this example earlier, and they're not showing up to class, well, we see it all the time for those that are using Lightspeed Filter. You start to see these trends where they may be searching for things that are lending themselves to potential, you know, self-harm and depression and things. So kind of back to this, the interoperability of the data set that we have really built off the foundation of, you know, the SSL decryption that was in the agent coupled with the CatchOn technology, merging those things together. But that's kind of how the background on, you know, how to get users in groups and allowing you as a district to drill down even to a single student to see what their engagement is like across that device and across that app ecosystem.
Thanks so much.
Here's another question, a follow-on question, Jena, with regards to if the students are at home and on their internet, are they going through Lightspeed? Or is it supposed to be calling back to the district, or is there an agent, a client on that mission?
Yes, Jena, you want?
You take that one.
Yeah. So again, kind of the way that the patented agent, you know, works is it travels with the device. And so you're not, many of you have IT backgrounds, and you might be familiar with like mobile filtering, kind of similar. But the difference with us is it's not proxying back to the network. You're not having to push pack files. And so that agent is capturing all of that data on the device, whether it's at school or at home. And that's how we get that, you know, Jen showed that use case, like what's the adoption engagement like when the device leaves the network? The agent's reporting on all of that without having to call back to, you know, a physical appliance or something at your network. It's all powered by AWS. And so regardless of where the device goes, we can show you that usage on the device itself or based on time of day or by location. So hopefully that answers the question on kind of how that agent works, traveling with the device itself, still reporting and monitoring.
I keep seeing questions pop up. I don't know if we want to keep going and then answer.
No, that was I think we answered the question right.
Okay.
You got a perfect thank you. So hopefully it benefited the rest of the group too. But yeah, please keep asking questions as we continue.
If you'll keep up with those questions, Mike, all I see is the numbers.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm not trying to ignore anybody, I promise. So I hopped over to trending applications. Again, this is a really special piece of CatchOn and Lightspeed in general. As I mentioned to you, we started off being an ROI value proposition for school districts. But as I worked with districts in New York specifically, Ed Law 2D came about. And it was right around the time that law surfaced and everyone was trying to figure out how they were going to comply with this law, which specifically required districts to be responsible for all the applications that were in use. And any application that was collecting student PII, student login, directory information. And this was something they're like, well, Jena, you are capturing this data with your agents. You're not showing us that. Could you show us the other side of the equation? And I like to think of it like an iceberg in an ocean. So, in an iceberg, you've got this, piece sticking out that you see, and those are the applications you've approved. Those are the applications you've purchased. But then everything else under the surface, all that extra roots and ice that's just lying beneath the surface that you can't see, that's the unapproved applications. Those are the student data privacy risks. How do you even know that those are being used unless you don't have an inventory? So let's go ahead and take a look at our ability to filter all this information. We have hundreds of tags. You can also create custom tags, which is another unique feature of our tool. Let's go ahead and filter those tools in use. The trending applications is showing you everything that's being used in real time so that you can really be able to see what students are using, what staff are using. You can categorize those to see how many assessment tools do we have? Why do we have 36 LMS tools? I'm just totally making this up, but For the sake of student data privacy example, I want to show you student login. Again, this is a really important feature that our districts have found. We built this specifically to meet these needs and these new and emerging state student data privacy laws. How do you keep up with all of the tools that teachers are asking for, these tools that are in use? How do you manage an approved app list, or do you manage an approved app list? Our districts have shared with us that when it comes to teachers either submitting requests by email or asking just randomly at a meeting, hey, I really like this tool, can you approve it? It is taking them at least 2 hours per teacher per week to be able to get all of this information together, especially for states like Minnesota, who have brand new laws that specifically require them to capture all of this information, all of these apps that are being used, but they're capturing it anecdotally. And not only that, they're spending an exorbitant amount of time and resources to capture this information that we can do algorithmically. So let's take a look at all of these tools in use that capture student login or student PII. We have 139 of these. Oh my goodness, how do we even begin to make sense of these? Glad you asked. So we have third-party reviews. We have partnered with One EdTech. We've partnered with Student Data Privacy Consortium for the last, four years. I think we've worked with those great guys. And you can see really easily those tools that have these badges. So that helps you save a ton of time when you're looking at all of these tools that you're in use and you're trying to make sense of, do we want these tools to be used? Do they meet our requirements? Are these things that we need to block in the Lightspeed filter? Tag there. But having these reviews make it so simple for districts to be able to have that extra piece of validation to say, you know, those really smart guys at One EdTech said this is pretty good and their standards are quite rigorous. Maybe this app is okay. So let's take a peek at this little app profile. Every single app in our system has an app profile. And essentially, I clicked the wrong one. That's always what happens. But they all have app profiles. Oh, server error. That must mean I have bad Wi-Fi right now. Apologies, guys. Let's see if this, there we go. That looks a little better. Sorry. But all of our tools have app profiles. We have over 5,000 apps and growing in our system that are both algorithmically and human curated to make sure that we have the most relevant tools in our system. But you see these third-party reviews, you can actually look into more details. So take a look at this, really providing you even more insight into these tools. So when it comes to these apps and all these things that are in use, how do you help teachers not only have visibility into what's acceptable to be able to be used, especially as it relates to creating that approved app policy, making sure that even publicly this list is available. But how do you manage all of this? We built in a system as of recently, it's within the last about 6 months, because we had all this information, because we have trending apps, because we have these app profiles. We started off by offering districts the ability to publish their apps that are approved. But now we have an entire approval management system so that teachers can actually be able to ask for approvals. They can submit app requests, and then you have this process of saying it's in review or it's approved. So let's take a look at our 13 that are in review right now. Oh my goodness. Many districts have told us that this takes them, just reviewing a privacy policy, at least 1 hour per app, because they know essentially what to be looking for, but these apps change their policies all the time. And often we just get a little email that says, hey, we changed our policy. What did they change? Did they change something monumental, or did they just change some punctuation? So when it comes to vetting these apps, we give you the third-party reviews to make it really simple to see, hey, these really smart guys approved this, maybe it's okay, a little extra validation into these tools. But also, we provide you, which is extremely unique to us, we are the only one to do this, be able to see, let's see, hold on. I'm gonna click Crazy Games. By the way, I had to do some research on Crazy Games. This tool is used by 20 million students worldwide right now, and it grows exponentially. So you see this thing and you're like, okay, well, 1% licensed this district across Lightspeed. I don't really know about this. It has no badges. How do you make sense of this tool? So what we can do is we can look at view the privacy policy update history. This gives you a glimpse into not only the how many times that this particular policy has changed, but allows you to compare the versions. So let's go ahead and compare. I want to compare, let's see, September 22nd in this. Let's go ahead and compare the versions. Let's see what's changed. This has been the big deal moneymaker. Everyone loves this. This is the feature. If you're looking for something to save you time, you're looking to put some student data privacy policies together and make sure that your district is compliant with state laws, compliant with FERPA, SIPA, COPA. These are the tools that you're looking for. You're looking for the trending apps to see what's in use. You're looking for the third-party badges to make it easy whenever you're looking at all these hundreds of apps that you had no idea were in use. And then thirdly, and most importantly, you're looking to see when these policies change and actually get real-time notifications that these policies have changed. And then we highlight for you what's changed. Is it just text removed? Is it text added? Is it formatted text, which would be, more of a simple change? But let's go ahead and scroll down. And I use this example because I actually shared this with one of our regions and I emailed them and said, did you know that this is no longer FERPA compliant because of this line that was sneakily added in there on a random Friday? By accepting this privacy policy, you give us permission to allow third parties to drop cookies and or web beacons for advertising and tracking purposes. This tool is used by 20 million students. How many districts do you think saw this privacy policy change and either have now blocked that app or taken some kind of action to protect their students? Well, if they're on our system, they did, but that leaves so many people who haven't. So having this extra visibility, we're providing you this service that you would otherwise be either tracking your emails and seeing all these changes and having to review yourself, or sending this to a very expensive lawyer who's going to cost you per hour on checking these out and making sure that your apps are always in compliance. If we've learned anything about student data privacy and the rise of freemium, it is that these vendors are relying on you to use their tools for free, and you are the business model. So they are utilizing the data for other purposes. Make sure that you are informed, make sure that you're empowered. And that's what we hope to be doing with this tool and our system in general, is to make sure that you are empowered consumers, that you can quickly and easily act on and understand all of your cost management, your student data privacy, and the tools that are bringing your students the most instructional impact. So that ends my spiel. Let's go to questions.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up too, just because unfortunate, we have a lot of current Lightspeed filter customers on there. Jena should scare you. You should be scared of that sort of application as a great example, but that is in the Lightspeed filter in the mature games category. So I urge some of you might want to check your content filter settings and make sure that one's being blocked. Let's see.
There was a good question that came in, Mike, around the privacy policy changes. Do they show up in a way, Jena, that districts can see when the changes occur, or do you have to manually go in and check them? Okay, let me get back and show my screen because I'm trying to save time for the sake of the demo, but let's go ahead and go back. So
the short answer is
yes.
You don't have to manually do anything with the analytics portion, but I think it's going to show you how that you can have pre-canned reports and share those with admins if needed. Yes, so there's a report that's sent every week on how many of these tools have changed, and then you can be able to see these and say 6 applications have changed. Let's go see which ones have. Okay. Oh, ABC. Yeah, that's a really popular one. Let's go ahead and see the updates here on Accelerated Reader. So we not only send you the notification via email every week of how many have changed, but then we also show you exactly what has changed, and you can easily click those and just grab what you want. And people have used this. Districts have said, well, we use this. We just specifically send the link to our
our in-house counsel and say, hey, look, this has changed. Is it good? But often what we found, what districts have said is we don't really need our in-house counsel for this because we have general knowledge on this. And then thirdly, districts have shared that this is actually part of their app vetting process. So our friends in Lincoln, Nebraska have said that they've utilized this as something that when teachers are requesting these apps, when they are, let me see if I can go back to that, approval management, when teachers are able to have the link to be able to ask for specifically requested apps, then let's see, copy that, I'll show you how it works. Boop. They'll have this is what it will look like. And a teacher can request a tool. Many districts have said, well, we want one of the fields to be that they have to say if it has had approval changes of their privacy policy, or that we want teachers to have basic understanding of what that policy is tracking, and it either does or does not do X, Y, or Z. So, and it's just, we hope that it is democratizing everyone's ability to be able to read these policies that we often see are not layman's terms. So that's our hope, at least. This is making it more simple for you.
It's great. I just saw another one come in around, mentioned Lightspeed filter. We're not a customer yet. Appreciate that. Can Lightspeed Analytics product operate independently of the other Lightspeed products? And the short answer is yes. The power of that agent technology can populate all of the reports and do the privacy scanning that we talked about. I think hopefully it's at least resonated a little bit, the power of having the Lightspeed filter. Jena mentioned it, I think I did too, about if I see crazy games, okay, today I would have to go to a completely different system, hope that's not conflicting, try to block it. I'm doing it via my firewall, maybe my content filter. And so those are some of the integrations that are nice that you can leverage. The data set is talking to each other, the interoperability between the two systems. And the nice thing too, for those of you that have been Lightspeed filter customers, the benefit of that is we'll be able to ingest that historical filtering data into the analytics product. And so I think I just saw a question pop up about procurement channels and proof of concepts. Proof of concept wise, typically I think Jena, takes probably a couple of weeks to get a decent amount of data if you're not a current Lightspeed customer to kind of populate that so you can have that discussion. But typically within a span of 2 to 3 weeks, you have a general idea of, one, we've identified all the applications, right? But then two, it's how do I manage that moving forward? And what we found is, which I was always scared of, when we first launched the analytics product, was like, well, they're just going to, districts will run it for 30 days and they'll have all the information we've needed. But what we found in feedback and why we have such high retention on this product is because every month, I think there's a few Virginia schools on here, teachers go to Visti, they come back, they've learned about a new application. Like, you're constantly seeing new applications being utilized on these devices and on these networks, right? And so it's really, something that's almost a maintenance that you need to maintain, right? And so, but from a proof of concept standpoint, regardless if you're a Lightspeed client today or not, you can test this, evaluate it, see the data for yourself, and we'll walk you through some of the nuances on that and help you read it. And then from a procurement standpoint, we've done a tremendous amount of work with many clients with data networks for a decade plus, probably as long as Amy and I have been at both these companies, right? And so you can procure it from various contract vehicles, obviously, but also we have a lot of districts who will, if you're looking at a device refresh coming up, able to bundle that in with the hardware, making it more of a capital expenditure cost versus your traditional kind of software funds. And then also, we actually did some analysis with AWS, just looking at the amount of ESSER funds that many districts are aware, like they don't have remaining funds, and it's a tremendous amount, millions and millions of dollars. So there's a couple different funding vehicles, but partnering, with Lightspeed and data networks, we can help you navigate that to figure out what the best path is forward from the POC to potential procurement. Just saw a couple more pop in. I forgot I had to scroll down. Can you turn off application for a new app if you don't want to use that with teachers? Right. I think the short answer, and we might have answered it already, sorry. Short answer is yes. I think that, as Jena was showing, seeing the trending applications pop up and those comparing approved versus not, I think you can identify the not approved apps, and Jim has been saying that allows you to have the conversation, with curriculum instruction on being able to see which school or user is utilizing that app. Say, hey, is this something that's working for your students, for your users? Is it driving better learning outcomes? Okay, we might need to approve it. So identifying it, sure. From a blocking perspective, you'd only be able to utilize that with, if you have Lightspeed filter as well. If not, you would probably have to find another avenue to do it via your firewall or whatever's doing your content filtering today.
Yeah, I think that answered the question. Yeah. What did typically districts do if they don't approve an app? How would they block? Would they block the URL or download? Yeah.
Right. And you could, from blocking a download perspective, I think you could do some of that with your, if you have your devices managed, you may be able to accomplish it with your MDM. But again, you're kind of jumping between multiple systems. And so kind of, again, the idea around the platform that we've built is the data sets are talking to we want none of the system can, not conflicting, I guess, from either a roadmap perspective for future growth, but also for just day to day and your workflow.
Could I answer that next one, Mike, with a demo?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd love to demo. Hold on. So when it comes to approval management, I went through this really quickly. I apologize. I could have gone to much greater detail. So this is a really cool tool. I'm really, really excited about how the team did this. It was obviously in partnership with many of our districts, understanding how they do their approval management and what they would love to be able to do if it weren't in spreadsheets. So first and foremost, you can manage your approved and published list. So again, that's state compliance. So many states, Ed Law 2D, we've got now Minnesota. I could go through, 30 plus more states, but many state laws require you to publish an approved app list at the very bare bones minimum to show your stakeholders and constituents, and especially parents, what has been approved, which tools you have said meet the standards. And so to do that, you have this approval management. You do this very simply in our either applications library or that trending apps. Each application, you could just very simply say approved. So once you see all those great badges, you say, hey, it's approved. So it would pop up here, populate. But then what this does is it captures all the information about this tool so that, again, when you create that public app list, it has all of that important rich data that you would otherwise be typing in manually. This was huge for New York, and now we've recognized that this is important for other states as well. And your parents and constituents can also see these badges too. So they're identifying not only that you have approved this app, but maybe why you've approved it, that it has all these other third-party validations that kind of make it a little less scary. And then again, so teachers will see that list. And then you can also share this link with teachers, and that's how they will request applications. So I want to show that to you one more time. And I have my email open for a reason too. So you get this app. Oh, I'm a teacher. I want to request this app. I went to ISTE. I saw this awesome tool. All these different reasons. So you give them some extra steps to take. So they really want this app. I really want it. Send the request. What happens is I, as the CTO, get an email, requested apps. Then I can go into here and I can say, it's in review. Here's my actions. I can edit and review. I can remove from review. I can add it to my approved. The teacher who requested this app will get a notification. She'll get an email notification, as well as everyone who's part of the Lightspeed Analytics system will also get an email saying, this has been approved by Jena Draper, and here are the reasons why. And here's some even comments that you can add when you approve an app. So let's go ahead and add this to approved and see. You can say it's only approved for certain grades. It's approved for certain campuses or groups. And then you can add your comments and say, Jena loves this app. Thumbs up. Does that help answer that question?
I'm guessing by the silence, it's yes.
Yes, but then for that approved list, can you choose what's on the spreadsheet and take columns off for clarity?
Yes, you can. when you approve that app, you can say, I just want the name. I want all the favcons and all the extra stuff. I want all of the badges, or you can just say, I just want the name. So you can customize that list, but you have the link and you can embed that on your district website as well.
Any more questions from the attendees before we wrap up today? I didn't know there was the ability to ask anonymously, so I'm glad we were able to get through all the questions. If you didn't feel comfortable sending anything to the chat, please. I think we'll share our contact details from both the Lightspeed side and Data Networks, as well as a copy of this deck. And I think Jena mentioned it on the onset of this. You will have the ability to download and receive that EdTech app report, which is pretty enlightening, a little scary, but certainly to provide some more statistics and some data around why this product can make a difference for your district. And again, if there are questions or if you're interested in testing this, please reach out to us. Happy to have those conversations with you offline with the teams at your district.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike and Jena. We really, really appreciate you conducting this demo today and overview, specifically for our MEEK folks, but really very happy for those who may not be a part of that. Certainly glad that you joined us, and we will be following up. Thank you again.
Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, everyone.